And we are live. Exciting. And I am going to get the notes ready. Good to go as far as notes are concerned.
Okay. You know if Will is going to join, or?
I don't know.
Okay, will be good because
Ed is marked as a maybe, but I find the RSVP doesn't tend to mean a whole lot. People sort of come in and out.
That's.
Let me post the link in the channel.
And Nick is joining, do you know, or?
Good chance.
Because I think Peter want to push the Cosmic. He was mentioning that he wanted.
Yeah.
They can put the flights in, and they get more measurements in, and then it looks much better. No? That's the whole feeling for Peter, I think.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But and I asked Everdeen for looking into it, and she said it was quite fake, the proposal what Nick made.
Just notify the channel. Yeah, I think the thing that I wasn't so sure about was, you know, I remember Nick mentioning, and I haven't verified this myself, but that we don't have a hard link from measurements back to the drive. And so if we, because I'm pretty sure his proposal involved annotating the drive. So like basically, from my understanding, what we're going to have to do is like annotate the drive as, you know, some sort of radiation, right? Like either flight radiation or surface radiation, that sort of thing. And then we want to be able to produce maps that can either include or exclude those measurements. But the problem is right now, I think all the maps are driven off the measurements table, which doesn't have a hard link back to the drive, which is where we're talking about putting that annotation.
Doesn't have it back to the drive, but it has a measurement on it for air, ground, and another thing on it.
Oh, does it? Okay.
It does have that because I see it from the nanos. The nano you can set up for what kind of measurement you do.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying the tables themselves because we lose a little bit of data, I think.
Maybe not in the measurements themselves. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah. So measurement imports. Okay, measurements dot radiation. Okay, so he's talking about putting like annotating the measurements table directly. Yeah, that would do it. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. But Everdeen was not clear about how to do. He was saying the proposal was quite fake. But I don't know what she meant by that.
Are you saying fake? Like FA?
No, not clear. Let's say this way.
Not clear. Yeah. Yeah, it's a little. I think I see what he's getting at. Is basically just annotating the drive the way we talked about doing so, but then also when we do the approval, that basically like hitting approve is what gets the measurements from that measurements import subtype over to the measurements table. When we do that, copying the metadata over to the measurements table as well, and that would avoid the problem that I was talking about, where like we don't have a link back to the drive. But to be honest, actually denormalizing that data probably makes more sense anyway, because if we had to like join on the drives table to get that data when we're pulling measurements out of the measurements table, that would probably end up being very, very slow. At least I suspect it would be.
Okay.
Nice beard, Joe.
Thanks. Probably won't last long.
Yeah, well, it's wintertime.
I was trying to fit in Latin America.
How did it pan out?
Say again?
How did it pan out? Did the beard help?
Oh, I guess so. I mean, nobody down there seemed to notice because they hadn't met me before, but everybody else had them, so I guess I fit in all right.
There you go. Well done.
Did you bring some mosquitoes back?
Nope.
Nope. Okay.
Thank you for that.
Only saw one the whole trip, and it was slow and not threatening.
Cool. Okay, where was it?
So what's going on so far? I heard you guys. I came in the middle of you talking about something.
So we were talking a little bit about the aircraft radiation support. Why can I not edit? There you go.
Oh, for the just bgeigy files that are log files that are from being in airplanes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, because you can't put them in now because they'll just get mixed up with everything else.
Right, right.
I'm going to put the notes doc in the chat if anyone wants to. I'll be typing notes in here as we go.
Yeah, I've got quite a few of those. In fact, I made 2 or 3 of them this last week.
Yeah, and I think I'll put a link here to Nick's proposal. I think it makes trust. Sure. Hold on, Google Docs is doing something weird. I think Nick's proposal makes sense to me. That we'll annotate the measurements import, or I think it's called the bgeigy import class with that metadata that we're talking about. But then the one kind of gotcha is it's not just that field. We'll also want to put that metadata on the measurements table as well.
Right.
For two reasons.
I think the label we're going to use is cosmic.
Yeah.
That's
Are you going somewhere, Rob, or are you just hanging out in your car because it's heated?
No, we had to do shopping today, so that's it.
Okay.
So we're doing the laundry at the moment. So
Gotcha. Glad we could catch you at a good time. So that seems relatively straightforward. I think it's just a matter of whether or not we have the people to work on it. Like, I don't know, Rob, what you're like, if you have any plans for working on stuff this month. My time is pretty short, and I'd like to spend it on air if I could, rather than this. So.
I can have a quick look, and I think Evelyn wants to also to look at it. So,
Okay.
but as I mentioned before, she was not clear about it. So, but
Okay.
maybe we can talk about it, and then it becomes more clear.
Okay. Yeah, when Eve's around, maybe I may just ping her in the channel, and say I can chat about it whenever she wants.
Anybody know where she is?
No.
You know.
Which time zone?
No, but that's not so important, no. Oh, you mean it's online?
No.
Okay, that's true. That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, because it seems like her tweets have been coming in late in the day this last few days, so I think she might be in London.
Okay, that makes sense.
So I'm happy to discuss. It doesn't seem too bad. I mean, it's denormalized, but that's probably better. Because it also saves us having to fix the fact that measurements aren't tied back to the drives right now. Maybe when we fix this, we can, or maybe when we work on this, we can try to fix that problem as well. But if we just denormalize it, then we don't have to worry about the fact that measurements don't reference back to their drives by ID. So
I think she's online. No?
Oh, cool. Oh.
Still jet lagged.
I can see that.
I sort of wonder if it might be worthwhile to have, for Rob, like to have you plan to do it, but then have Eve as a like a reference point and stuff like that. Since she also seems pretty strapped for time lately too.
More than a reference point, probably.
Yeah.
Okay, but I can have a look to it. That's true.
Yeah, I get the feeling you might have a little bit of capacity to actually type the characters in.
Many typos there, but.
Yeah. Well, I need Rob for something soon too, so.
Oh yeah, we're just all gonna ping Rob. Cool, but it seems straightforward enough, and hopefully it can get those locked measurements out of the way. Anything else you want to talk about on that front, or?
No, I think that's clear. If Nick comes on, maybe Nick can explain a little bit more. Then it's more clear what he wants. But maybe he's not there yet.
Yeah, I think it makes enough sense to me.
Colin, do you follow?
He's muted, so maybe he's in a place where he can't talk. There he is.
I can talk, but apparently my phone's from time to time.
There's Eve. Yay.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good
or
morning.
wherever your zone is.
Yeah. How are we doing?
Still with us? I think maybe my internet just got weird.
Yeah, I think
Yeah, mine. Yeah, it got all locked up for about 10 seconds.
Okay, good.
Eve, can you follow?
Can I what?
Can you follow the conversation? What's going on? Can you hear?
Yeah, I can hear you all.
Because we were just talking about the air.
You're talking about the cosmics, yeah? I'm trying to open that file, and it's bringing me directly to Google Drive.
Let me, I can...
So what's document name?
Oh, I see. Hold on. I had it open in like a little window thingy. Let me...
What's the name of the document?
How do I... it's in the folder. It's called Cosmic Aircraft Radiation API Support.
Okay.
Get link.
Does it only have one page?
Yes. The best I can tell. The PDF. Yep, just that one page.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, good.
And Rob, fixed drive is working at this point, right?
For the MD5, putting it in, that works fine.
Okay, cool. Looks like
What does that do?
There are other issues, but that part works.
So are we going to do away with the MD5 value as key?
I would say we already have. Since we're essentially just going to be forcing it through the MD5 isn't going to be unique at this point.
Uh-huh.
I see that whatever subtype is optional text. Do we have any other subtypes right now, or that's the only one we're thinking?
The ticket mentioned a couple, I think, that came from... Right. The original recommendation from Peter was drive, flight, or surface. Nick's recommendation looks like cosmic. I think we should probably just agree on what they're going to be. I don't know for sure if we're necessarily going to go through and backfill all the old data. I'll kind of leave that up to whoever is working on the ticket. But I remember in discussions with Peter, and looks like I noted on the ticket, the thought was to handle this sort of cosmic case as like flights. Drives are pretty much what we have all of right now. But Peter also mentioned the possibility of surface, so like kind of very, very low to the ground measurements as well. Answer the question, Colin.
And that will be applied at the current drive level, right?
That so the plan on Nick's PDF is to have it as metadata on the... It's mentioned here as the measurements imports table, which is basically the drive. So when you upload the drive log, you create a BGAGI log record that has a collection of measurement imports. And so we would be putting that measurement imports subtype in there attached to the drive, which would then get copied over to the radiation field on the measurements table.
I mean, will this allow, even without not thinking about interface for it right now, but will this allow to go and mark part of the drive or somehow some points of the drive with something?
From like a UI perspective, probably not, or at least not initially. Since we're denormalizing into the measurements table, you could potentially, any single measurement could potentially be given a different value.
Okay.
I think it's just a matter of
come later if needed and we need it, but as long as we can do that at measurement level, that should be very good because, I mean, there should be a couple of queries that can be run based on, say, altitude, based on something else, and that can go and pick up parts of drives and backfill those. I mean, for the coming, everything will be, say, marked as cosmic or whatever.
Yeah.
And later somebody can go and unmark some points of being normal or something like that.
Yeah, I think it does afford us that flexibility. So we know that we'll be, at least initially, we'll be doing all the data exports from anything where the radiation field is not marked as cosmic. But yeah, we could explore other options there as well.
Seems good.
So what's the implication?
Any particular field that you're looking for, or?
Well, I'm seeing that we're adding a subtype on measurement imports, and it's going to affect measurements. So what are the implications? What external processes are pulling from this database?
So the thing that people should be pulling from is the measurements table. So it's going to be that radiation field on the measurements table that'll have the impact to consumers.
But basically measurements are time series, yeah. So if a drive has 100 data points, it would write 100 rows into measurements, yeah.
Yes.
Once it's approved, yeah.
So do we? So the cosmic subtype is held on measurement imports only, yeah.
Initially, it would be on measurement imports and then copied over to the measurements table.
Why do we need to copy it?
That's just the way the approval process works right now. So before a drive is approved, it's held in the measurement imports.
Okay, so measurement
table.
Imports is a staging table which has the same schema as the measurements table. Yeah, okay. And
or close enough that it's easy to copy things over. Yeah.
But we're talking about having the same value for that column for every single time series data point.
Yeah.
In the same import. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, that's no wonder. So. No wonder our database backup is so large.
Well, we don't have this right now, but I mean, we're talking about making things bigger too.
We shouldn't do that. So the thing is, sorry, I'm a bit sick. So hypothetically, let's say you're on an airplane and you're measuring from an airplane. So the airplane is on the ground and it takes off, and then you continue your measuring. So in this case, you have data from the surface from 2 meters high and from like 10,000 feet. So is this an acceptable import, or does it need to be broken up?
In this proposal, we would be looking at just marking that entire recording as cosmic, even though you would have some points at the 2 meter range. Like we could potentially try to pick out those two points. I just don't see anyone having the bandwidth to actually, I don't see anyone having the development bandwidth to actually produce UI that makes that doable.
Yeah. Okay. So another thing is that is there a table which gets written into only once per import? Like it shouldn't be the measurement imports table. Yeah. Is there another table?
It's the logs. It'd be like BGIE logs. I'm pretty sure it's like a single table inheritance setup. I think it's called measurement log. Let me get.
So basically each row in there represents a drive. Yeah.
Yeah, it represents like a single upload.
Okay. Then the subtype should be there.
Yeah.
The interval of data capture is 5 seconds.
Sorry?
Is the interval of data capture 5 seconds? Every 5 seconds we save a new row.
I don't know. I thought it was like a minute. Is it 5 seconds? I don't know.
Yeah. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, it has to go into the logs table instead of the measurements table or the measurement imports table. Otherwise, we'll be looking at 100 gigs or more in our database.
The gotcha there, though, is we can't query back to that. Like, once it's in the measurements table, we don't have the linkage back to the log import.
Maybe we should fix that.
It's like, it's all a question of like bandwidth here. I'm all for fixing that as well.
Yeah, we should fix that,
wanna...
because if we don't fix that, then we will make it impossible for people to grab the entire database pretty quickly, because this radiation cosmic thing is going to take four bytes minimum, because in Postgres, the minimum size a column occupies is 4 bytes if you use an enumerated value. And if you use a string value, it's going to be much more. So you're talking about 4 bytes per row. And we already have 1 million entries, more than 1 million. 3 million.
Oh, we have like 40 million.
Okay, 40 million. So we're going to be doubling the database size if we do it on the measurements table. We can't do that, because the database backup is, I don't know, 30 gigabytes, 35. So we can't do that. We need to put it on the logs table, and that means that we will need to generate a bandwidth to be able to do a join query eventually, so we can put a subtype value on the logs table. At least that's what I think. How do you think?
So, Eve, what do you propose then?
First, we need to have a way to provide a way, basically, for the application to be able to do a join query between a drive entity and the measurements in that drive, either before import, during import, or after approval. So we need a join query, because then we're going to put the subtype value on the drives table. And once we put a subtype there, then we can add a new subtype value. And I think that's the only way to work, or the only way for it to work. Otherwise, the database isn't going to fit.
But how would you implement that?
I don't know. So the first thing is, why do we have no way to relate a measurement with a log entity? There should be a way, though.
I'm sort of wondering if that's even true that we don't, from looking at the code. Like, it should be copying over the ID. Maybe it wasn't consistently. That could be. I was just going off of what Nick told me.
Well, so the measurement entity belongs to measurement import. So they are not usually staging tables. It's something else.
I think at one point there was some issue with device IDs and something else that got mixed up. So
no, it's not an issue.
But the thing is, if we put the drive ID, which probably will take again some 4 bytes, if we don't have it now, if we put the drive ID, of course that will be better. But this means that it will, bump our table size again the same. So we're hitting the same problem.
No, I see that generally it's already possible to do a join query from measurements, or say between measurements and measurement imports. It's already possible because there's a foreign key column on measurements.
Yeah, there is. There's a measurement import ID right here.
So it's incorrect to say that measurement import is a staging table for measurements. So that staging table ID is incorrect. We don't need to fix the parent-child relationship. It's already there, unless if the foreign key is broken. So anyway, if we add a flag on measurement imports, you should be able to do it. So do a migration, add a new type. By default, set everything to drives and add a new type called Cosmic. And that should solve the database problem. And then all the queries, like the tile map. The tile map may need to change to port queries belonging only to drives.
Yeah, that's mentioned in the PDF as well.
And the public export may need to change too. So yeah, that's that.
Cool. That's nice that mapping ID is actually there.
Yeah. So it's a good thing then.
Yeah, that makes the situation quite a bit easier. I guess the only question then is, are we confident we can come up with a join that won't take too long? But it seems like that's
yeah.
pretty doable.
So the join shouldn't take too long.
Cool. Evadne, what's your bandwidth like this month?
My bandwidth is negative this month.
Okay. So
I can talk, but my bandwidth is negative.
Okay. So I think as far as like capacity planning is concerned, I don't have a whole lot of time to dedicate either, but I was hoping to put it on getting the air imports moving forward. So I guess, I don't know, or it looks like we lost Joe. Joe is saying he might tap Rob or something else, but what I was kind of imagining is maybe we can have Rob try to steer this cosmic radiation thing, and Evadne have you be like Rob's point of contact for the approach.
Okay.
Yeah, that sounds fine. So this rumor about correlating entries using MD5 sums, is that just a rumor then?
It appears to be just a rumor. I mean, obviously I only scanned like the first 10 rows. I mean, it could be maybe we have some measurements that don't link up. But, at least just sampling 10 rows, they are there and they link back correctly. So there might be some data repair question if we do have rows that don't link back.
So the only place in the application where it queries existing stuff by ND5 sum is when there's a duplicate warning. That's the only time when the application queries anything using its ND5 sum. And also there's another there are another 3 instances in the test cases. So it appears to be a rumor then.
Yeah, it does seem that way.
Yeah.
Can you confirm the rumor, because I'm not exact. I think we discussed that before, but basically
It was a rumor.
When we insert the data, we check back the MD5 in the database to make sure that this point hasn't been inserted before. So one way to check is to compare each of the fields that we already have. But since that will take a lot of time, I mean, pre-computing whatever key in terms of MD5 was the proposed solution.
So I actually grilled Joe last year, or I think either last year or early this year. So according to Joe, the role of MD5 sum is because that when the big eye hardware was built, there were cases where there will be bit flips. So MD5 sum is there to ensure that data written to the SD card is correct.
Oh, no. MD5 is not present on the SD card. So MD5 is not present on the SD card. Every row in the SD card log has a CRC32 sum, 2 bytes at the end of the row. That's basically is getting discarded when we import the data in the database. And the MD5 is generated once the data hits the database to prevent you from uploading the same log or the same part of the log twice.
Okay, according to the code, in BigIE import.rb line 98, MD5 sum is generated from the content of the line. So it appears that we actually do have 2 checksums then, one from BigIE, one from the application.
Yes.
Okay, so
one from the application doesn't, like to your previous comment, I'm also doing just a grep over the code, and I'm not seeing anything that explicitly uses that MD5 for any work anyway. The one that the app generates.
It's only used on checking when you import a new file. Before the data is inserted, it generates the MD5 for each row, and then checks those MD5s against the database to make sure that none of those points are already present.
Yeah.
That's the only reason why MD5 was used. I suggested that a long time ago as a quick hack, because we didn't know what kind of fields we're dealing with, and etc. this can be reworked with exactly the same effect, but I'm not sure about the time needed to compute that. When you insert the data, just check each of the fields one by one in the database. And since
it will be much slower. It will be much slower because then you will check something that's much larger. But the thing is that
the other thing I'll throw out here,
because we have a timestamp and we have very few measurements with the timestamp that is the same, and we have index on the timestamp. So just checking one field and making sure if there is nothing with the same timestamp, you can insert that. So there will be a shortcut that is already there.
I also get the impression that the main thing we're trying to avoid is having people upload the same log file twice.
But that's already done, no?
Well, it's done because of this MD5 checking, but the MD5 right now is like on a row-by-row basis, which I feel like if all we're trying to prevent is uploading the same file twice, you don't really need to do that. You can just check it once.
Uploading parts of the file twice.
Yeah.
Do we know if that's a problem?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a problem because you can turn BigID on, log to a file, grab the file, upload it. Later in the day, you grab some more data, and then upload the file with the same name.
Oh, it'll reload it. It'll write data
and
out
then
to
the
the same
file
file.
will have a part of data that's already ingested and a part which is not.
Okay.
That was the original intention. So
that makes sense.
But as I said, since now we have a lot of data points, and we have how should I say? It's not a unique key, but it is very sparsely populated data in terms of timestamps. And then we have location. Just starting a lookup on timestamp, and if that fails, insert the data. If you find a match, then check location, and so on and so on. I think that's not that computationally expensive.
Yeah, so from what I see, the database has a constraint on uniqueness for MD5 sum, but I think we could loosen it so the constraint on uniqueness is expanded to include both MD5 sum and timestamp, and they will both need to be the same for the row to be rejected. If we do that, then due to the sparseness, we should be okay then. Is that what you're saying?
We can completely drop the MD5. It's not needed neither in the database, neither anywhere else. The only reason is at the time when we did that, and I think it was still an MySQL implementation when we were working on, was to make sure to have a pre-computed unique key for each row based on the data that is easy to compare. That was the only reason that this is there. So if we now can rewrite that to check each of the columns in turn, and since we, as I said,
it will be much slower. It will be much slower due to the vast amount of data that's required to be indexed, and the database size will blow up.
I'm still confused as to why we even need to check it as far down as the measurements table.
Because you cannot check it at the file level.
No, I get. Yeah, I guess
that is not enough because we can get a file and then split it in two and upload the whole file and then the two parts. And
yeah, I guess what I was getting at is if we stop it at the measurements import, like essentially the staging table.
Oh yeah. That's the only. That's
like if we do the check there, then we don't really need to also do it at the measurements table.
No, there's no staging table.
There is right now though. There's the measurements import where stuff goes into. So if you look at, do you have the code handy? It sounded like you were looking at it already.
Looking at it.
Yeah, so if you look at
table at those times.
If you look at BGIG import, where's
the measurement import has an MD5 sum, but it looks like it's file level.
So we might just have to change that if we want
to.
Yeah,
it's file level, so it's not actually row level.
Okay.
Because measurement import has many measurements. In the code, has many measurement import logs, but that's that.
So it's the BGIG import class, in the import measurements method is the one that it basically, it does a select on, it does a select from BGIG logs, that's what it is, not measurements, from BGIG logs, and then inserts into measurements.
Yeah.
just a side note, maybe there is some other MD5 in the code that has to do something with the logs that are being uploaded to S3. So maybe there is MD5 of the whole log file, but that's completely different from what we're talking now.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So the thing is that another thing I'm hearing is that we are now seeing MD5 collisions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So now we have a button that will import regardless of whether or not there's an MD5 collision or not.
But there's a database level constraint on MD5 sum uniqueness. So how does that work? Did we drop it already?
I think it's this import measurements fix method that basically when it copies into measurements, it doesn't include the MD5 sum.
So it's nullable, is it?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know about that.
Well, if it's already nullable, then there's no point there.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be nullable or else this insert wouldn't pass.
Okay, so now we are comparing in terms of performance. Now we are comparing again an MD5 column, right? And instead of comparing again an MD5 column, if we compare it to a time column, that should be the same order, I think.
No, we will have to compare both time and checksum because it's possible for two sensors to be running concurrently.
Yes, but when we compare the time and we don't find a match, we stop there. We don't have to compare everything. One single discrepancy is enough to qualify this point as a new
No, this
point.
design will optimize concurrency or concurrent imports over what we have right now, which is more sparse. So just a suggestion is that do a unique index over MD5 sum and timestamp, assuming that timestamp cannot be null. And timestamp comes from device and its UTC seconds, or something like that.
But the timestamp is already part of that MD5 sum. So there is,
No, that's the thing, because we will have collision by simply using MD5 sum. So if we add a timestamp, then it means that for the same second value, there will be two different rows, and the two different rows will need to have different values.
Can you
in order
point?
To get injured.
I asked Rob before, and he couldn't exactly point me. But if somebody can point me to two rows that have different data in same MD5 sum, I'll be very interested to see.
Well, and that is where the collisions come from, and
No,
that's what a true collision is.
Yes.
Because do we have other kinds of collisions?
This is the collisions I've seen. Only the MD5 sum.
No, but they're collisions because the data points are the same. The data that we input in the MD5 function is the same.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not a collision. A collision means two different data sets that produce the same MD5 sum.
Yes.
And I haven't seen those in the database. And there are only about 3 collisions known in the world, which are several gigabytes of data. So for our data set, that is probably few, I don't know, maybe a kilobyte or something per line. If we find a collision, we can write a paper in cryptography. We haven't. And if we have, please find it, and I'll be very happy to, write the paper.
But anyway, getting back to the cosmic data, do we necessarily need to address the state of MD5s with that work, do you think?
We started that because I said if we drop the MD5, we can actually put the cosmic instead of MD5, and we'll still have a smaller database. Because MD5 actually blows out the measurements by most.
Yeah. I guess the question is, we might not even, assuming the measurements import ID is populated consistently, we might not even need the radiation column to be added. We could add it to the measurement imports table instead and save a lot of space there.
If we want to have that a single label per drive, if we're dealing with the idea that we want that per data point, like we have a mixed drive, then we need to be having that in the measurements or somehow linked there.
Yeah, kind of getting back to that question of what do we do with an airplane flight that starts at 2 meters and taxis around for a while and then goes up. I think this also kind of reminds me of a discussion I had with Peter a while back about having some sort of like annotations capability on the final measurements table.
Yep. That's a way of annotating stuff. But probably if we go to free annotation,
well, not necessarily like free and totally open, but having some sort of at least mildly flexible notation system on the measurements table, which is basically what this is, right? We're talking about annotating it as cosmic. So.
Well, if the annotations, whether cosmic or not, will be sparse enough,
yeah.
Probably it will be wiser to annotate that as in a separate table that links to the measurement table by measurement ID or whatever.
Mm.
Because, I mean, if we're going to have a few hundred, say 500 meaningful values in a table of 40 million, chances are we don't need a separate column for that, because that will blow a lot the table.
I see what you're saying. So keep that's an interesting thought. I mean, I don't know, Evadne, if you have any thoughts on that, but since a large swath of our data is not something that we would consider, special or worthy of annotation, would it be at all efficient to keep data about which points are not standard in a separate table and then join on that? My relational database chops are not strong enough to say whether or not that's going to be any better or worse.
My initial proposal in 2011, when we started having problems with different things like approving data and stuff, was we just keep n number of tables and we label each of those the way we want, and then we have a single query that queries all the table. So we have a table that's called, say, cosmic radiation. We have a table that's called unapproved drives. We have a table that's called approved drives, etc., etc. And that's how the data is separated. So as long as we have really 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 types of data, that's the easiest way to implement that. Joining a few tables by, I'm not saying joining, I'm saying concatenating a few tables with the same structure is very easy. But adding a column in a huge table is on the computational resources.
Okay. I mean, I think we have our options. I don't know if I want to get too much deeper than we already have into implementation on that call, or on this call necessarily. I guess, for like we got Nick chiming in on chat now. Yeah. Yeah. I guess, Nick, can you hear? I guess you can. Usually you can. I don't see why we need to join on MD5 sum necessarily. We have the measurements import ID in the table. Or if we wanted to do something that it sounds like what Colin is proposing, we wouldn't be joining on MD5 anyway. We'd be joining on a table that references into the measurements data instead. But yeah, as far as like an integer join from measurements to measurement imports, we have that right now.
Okay, I'll just write a short note on the Slack and I'll post it with very specific things that I said, and probably some of the history behind that, because apparently it's not easy to get it from the code, especially about the MD5 calculations and also some other ways of storing the data. But I think this needs to be addressed more in a written document than discussing it here. So if there's anything else.
I guess, Rob, do you have any questions about how the discussion has gone? And then, I'm kind of volunteering you here, but what do you feel like for capacity in terms of trying to push this forward this month?
I just have to look in it and talk with Eve about it to see how we can implement.
Ben, anything you wanted to bring up?
Can I ask another question I asked a few times ago? How is the server that is running the API doing in terms of load?
So New Relic has that data if you wanted to take a look at real time. From my analysis, the actual application server is doing fine. It's the database server that's not doing well. I haven't had the opportunity to dig very deep into it, but basically what seems to be happening is that there are some heavy queries that end up coming in, and then a lot of other stuff ends up backing up on those heavy queries. The thing is, it's the call that tends to be the heaviest is the measurement index page, which is of course, the one that people hit all the time. So you'll get a couple of those that back up, and then because of the nature of the deployment and the way we have everything set up, you can only get, I think it's 8 requests in flight at a time right now. We just don't have enough memory to support anything more than that without making some pretty big changes. But since we have the requests end up bumping up to 20 or 30 or sometimes even 70 seconds, at which point you're kind of just stuck. There's nothing you can do at that point. And the culprit seems to be more at the database layer than anything else. The app is hitting the database with some pretty nasty queries, and so that slows down, and then things get slower. Everything also touching the database gets slower, and then we're offline.
Okay, why I asked this question?
I wish I could tell you specifically. I haven't had the chance to enable the slow query logging on Postgres. I tried to do it on staging, and I took staging out, so I don't want to do it on prod until I know how to do it.
Okay. I'm mostly worried about the real-time sensors and, polling data for those. So I'm working on some kind of local caching algorithm that will really, lower down the load of the server, or this is what I hope to achieve. But if there is some way I can see actually what is the impact of the queries, that will be great. So I don't know what is available there or how you look at that, but basically I have a scheduled job that pulls some data every hour at currently 23 minutes past the hour, and as long as that doesn't pose any big issues to the server, then fine.
And give it a try. We use the database once a day anyway. I don't think anyone's really worried about causing much additional downtime. We're kind of down for a good percentage of the time to begin with. So.
Yeah, some of those queries basically fail, so I am not sure if it's wise to actually redo the queries, or I'm not sure if I'm pushing too hard, or that's the general kind of responsiveness everybody's working with. That's why.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like Evadny is asking what error message you're seeing. Evadny, I assume that's a question for Colin.
Colin, do you see timeout questions, or what kind of errors do you see?
Well, yeah, timeout.
Timeout. Okay. And that's every time, or is it once in a, let's say,
once in a while? I will actually start logging those, because that's part of the new code that I'm working. I'll start logging those with time execution of each of the queries, and that will give more details on the front end. But if we can correlate that to the back end, that will be really great. For example, I don't know what logs can be looked, but it's very easy to add some kind of, say, unique to the query, and if that belongs to the API, I mean, we can search that later.
We kind of lost the tail end of that column.
Really? Okay.
Maybe my internet connection's not doing well.
So what I was saying is, for example, I can add some kind of parameter to my queries because currently the API ignores all unknown parameters, and we can search later in the logs for those parameters, and we can see actually what is going on in the back end, and I'll have a log on the front end in terms of timings.
Yeah. If you have a log with like errors and timestamps, it's easy enough to pull Rails logs around that time. So, and in fact, actually, the IPs are fixed now, so I can even give you just the logs from your source IP if you know it.
Ah, yeah, that also works. Yeah, it's always fixed. Okay.
Okay, good. So we move to the next item from Air for Will, because Will is hanging out. Well, we have you here.
It's a good idea, Rob.
So do you want me to talk about some of the stuff I've come up against, or do you guys have something specific?
No. So you start first.
Okay, yeah. So we put together the methane sensor and had it run out in Port Ranch for 24 hours.
Fantastic.
And collected data. This is a stripped down version. It just has the GPS and methane sensor. And so the data came back and it looked good. We didn't see anything particularly interesting at this run. I think the highest we saw was like 5 ppm. And I'll make that data available. But one thing we did notice is that there's an issue with the GPS data, particularly the longitude. It's not doing the signs right. So when I first plotted it, it was coming up in China. And it just was, I think because it's west, it's supposed to be negative, right? For the decimal degree. So that's not being added correctly. That's something to be aware of. I think in the other air data that exists out there as well, you may see that. So that's something we need to fix. So we need to add that to the bug list. And then I'll make the air data available if people want to look at it. That, like I said, the gas concentrations were pretty low from what I saw. And one of the things I want to do is that was a sensor where I'm just using the calibration from the data sheet of the sensor. And I do really want to do like a ground truthing of it, that the sensor I have on there versus like a commercial sort of pre-calibrated sensor. And we have one of those now, so I'll do that soon. And then the other thing is that I've added Wi-Fi to the methane sensor because I think one of the reasons I think that the methane is very dependent on wind. So, they say some people who live out there, we're talking to them. They say some days you'll really smell it because the wind is blowing towards their house. Other days, you won't smell anything, right? Because the wind direction is the other way around. So, we really want to get a methane sensor out there that's sort of logging continuously to sort of see if we can see that. And so I've been adding the Wi-Fi to the methane sensor, and I have it working, and I can send JSON data with it. I can't send my JSON data yet for some reason, but I can. If I create a little synthetic piece of JSON, I can send it. And so I probably want somebody to coordinate with to sort of where am I going to send it with respect to your servers or whatever? How are we going to do this?
Right now, I don't think there is anywhere that you can send it.
Okay.
I think probably the best thing to do is collect it into a log file, and then we can work on importing it there.
Or if you want, maybe you could set up your own server and just test it out. So if it comes in and store it somewhere. So
I wrote a little Flask server that will receive it, and I can just have it like save it there, and then we can do something with it.
Yeah, that sounds like the thing to do for now, until we get until we get the the kind of like the drive oriented imports working. Once we get that working, then we should be able to give you an endpoint to do something a little bit more direct.
Yeah. I mean that goes to my other question. I was wondering if you guys had a live display or something of the value. So I'll put that in the little test server just because the person whose house we're putting it in there, they want to be able to see it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think like you said, like a little Flask server is the way to go for now, because there's still a fair bit of work to do in terms of getting the initial logs imported and getting all the database migrations done and all that kind of stuff for the main service.
Good. I don't have to worry about breaking anything.
Don't worry.
Okay, and the other thing is I really need to start working on the configuration file stuff for these guys because I'm starting to get more than one. I bought the components to build like 3 more of the methane sensors, and so it's getting to me it's getting to the point where it's kind of crucial that I do have some configuration file stuff on there because it gets a bit unwieldy when I don't. So I'll have to do that fairly soon, but I haven't yet.
Did you have a look at how it's done on the Big Eigen Nano?
A while ago, I'll look again and see. I was thinking of doing it in JSON just like the.
Yeah, that's easier, I think so. But you can see how they store it in the EEPROM, and so in case the SD cards are not being written, you still have the data there.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
That was very nice done, I thought.
Okay, yeah, I'll look at that. And that's pretty much all I had.
Okay.
All right. Looks like Evadne is asking me some questions here. I think, Evadne, why don't we just take that over to the Slack channel then? I've lost the video. Where'd it go? There we go. That was weird. For some reason, my Hangout just turned into one big GitHub screen. Couldn't get it back. Telling me to get back to work, I guess. I don't know. Cool. Cool. Yeah, I think sounds like you have the right idea for now. And like I said, I want to try to, if I'm going to spend any time on Safecast this month, I want to try to get it to getting the main API servers more able to handle error data. But I think, to be perfectly honest, there's still a lot of hours between here and there, and I tend to only have about 3 to 4 hours per month to spend on this stuff. So I would put a rough estimate in the 20 to 30 range. So I need to figure out how to spend a decent block of time on this, or else it's going to take a year. So, cool. Closing thoughts? I think we're good.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Good.
All right.